approve the agenda with the exception of 2.4, or do I have to make a separate motion?
Go ahead and someone make a motion to approve the agenda without 2.4, and that'll be good. You can say why too.
Is he not here?
I'd like to move to approve the agenda without people.
Brian, thank you.
A third.
We all agree. Anyone online? Are Paul and Judy online? Judy, I think Judy's here. You guys
I agree.
agree? Judy?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been approved. And I need a motion to approve the minutes for December 12th.
Motion we approve.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Carl. Everyone, we're good? Okay. Thank you. And we do have public comment from Ms. JJ. And JJ got some pictures, some certificates, I think. Is she going to share them?
Who's been naughty and who's been nice? Hi, JJ Duran, Vice Chair of Scappoose Park. I would like to have Christine. So Christine gave us generous donation and really tried to help us get sponsors. So we really appreciate that. So thank you so much for the for helping out with the outdoor festival. Here, we can get a picture together. And then, of course, a little round of applause. Thank you, Christine. And of course, Brian Rosenthal, who gave us a generous donation last year, was supposed to go to the dunking tank, but instead went towards our Native American dance, which was a huge success. And he was so impressed with it, he doubled his efforts. So we'll get you an award next year. But right now, Brian Rosenthal, thank you so much for helping the community.
Upside down.
And of course, I always have to thank all the staff that helped me. NJ did an amazing job doing the campfire storytelling booth, which was quite a lot of effort. Of course, Sean has been so generous with product from the grocery outlet, and we're so grateful to him for everything that he does. And Jeff is the backbone. I'm just the show. But we work hard. And then I also gave you guys basically just an outline of all the events that we do. So you can look at that at your discretion. And it also talks about the various things we've done in the past, what we're planning for the future. This year, the dates for the Earth Day celebration is going to be April 26th, which is after Earth Day, but the weekend before is Easter weekend, and we just thought there'd be too much conflict with that. And also with Earth Day, I won a national award from PBS from Flowers in Bloom, which is a national series that's on PBS for a bunch of flower stuff we did at the Earth Day celebration. So that was kind of cool. And then for the Outdoor Festival, we're moving that day to May 31st, which is a week after Memorial Day, because June 7th is graduation. So we want to make sure we do the Outdoor Festival before graduation and the end of school, so families are still here to enjoy it. Anybody got any questions? If you want to volunteer, I would love to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, JJ. Thank you for all of your work. We have a new team agreement to sign, and NJ is going to provide. He said there are no additional changes. Oh, is it in our packet?
Mm.
Okay, so sign, and if you agree, of course, sign your packet. Want me to read it?
Well, I know, hold on one second.
So big, so big, so big.
Yeah, so there is just one change. If you see under agreements for conducting committee meetings and business, number 6, contact the chair and city staff at least 10 days prior to a meeting if you wish to add an item to the upcoming agenda. This has just been something that's come up a few times, so just adding some clarifying language so we all know what timelines we're under.
Can we talk about the 10 days? Because I think that's a long time.
Well, it's got to be, 7 days at least, and then I'd rather not be scrambling the last day. And so that puts it to the Monday before packets come out.
Okay. Okay. So there's no signature spot, so we vote?
Just vote, yeah.
We all agreed that NJ put out the correct verbiage in our team agreement, and we like it.
Yes.
We need to make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I agree. I second.
Do we want to read more of it, or do you need to study? Okay. I agree. Vote. Judy, Paul, any issues with our new team agreement? 10
High
days.
five.
Looks
Please.
good.
Thank you.
Agree.
So moving right along to 2.2, our lovely community partners and their updates. I'm so excited. I haven't heard from you all in such a long time. I'm glad that we have a great show. Thank you, Casey and Nancy, Heidi, for coming. And Sierra, you're next. Are you doing both? Yeah, I'm doing both. Oh, you rebel. Okay. Columbia Economic Team, here you are. You're up first.
Let's see, Paul gave me quite the list
He
to go
does.
through, but I'm not Paul, so I won't be long-winded. So.
Oh. What are you trying to say?
So I have a few things to read from him. Part of his updates for recruitment and investment is first with Project Spice. That's continuing. It basically are an advanced aviation manufacturing business that would locate here in Scappoose in the Columbia Commerce Center. Columbia County is still a finalist that they're considering. And they're working through some energy supply questions and cost questions, property negotiations. It's a long, manageable phrase. Timeline with the state of Business Oregon and their focus similarly on Scappoose industrial lands. As a result, it would be about 250 jobs here in Scappoose, and the decision is expected in Q1. So that is how that project is progressing. Additionally, Paul's working on Project Arcadia, which is a tissue mill that would restart here in St. Helens, and it's extended due to due diligence. And they're right now into the prospective purchases agreement with DEQ and the project purchase sales agreement with the city of St. Helens. That one is estimated to be about 110 jobs, and the timeline is TBD. Restercap is continuing. They would be an owner in the Armstrong Building manufacturing site in St. Helens. They're currently in their second phase of preparing a development plan. Their floodplain plan is also completed. Their PPA is completed, and they're expected to be a multi-tenant model there, and the timeline is also to be determined. Goodness, so he has a lot of projects going on. Restercap, owner of Armstrong Manufacturing Site. Oh yes, we covered that one. Next Clean Energy is still continuing their renewable diesel plant that would go out to Port Westford in the Clatskanie area. The project has received a land use approval from DEQ, the 401 Clean Water Permit on November through January. Only the U.S. Army Corps Environmental Impact Statement, EIS, remains. The draft EIS is expected in late spring, and a high impact in the region is expected to be about a $2.5 billion investment in 3,000 construction jobs and 280 permanent jobs. CET is also working with 4 additional early stage industrial investment projects. We have multiple prospects, including being considering in the Columbia Commerce Center and nearby properties. Additionally, CET, City Community Development and City Management staff, CRPUD Business Oregon, has toured the Cascades Tissue Scappoose building. They're actively being marketed on the Cushman Wakefield site. Price recently reduced to $32 million, including surrounding land for expansion. That's about $112 per square foot, which is extremely, all caps, competitive, especially against the cost of new construction. CET has also been working with the Scappoose Hospitality Group, including Scott Parker, proposed hotel adjacent to OMIC R&D. SHG has selected a preferred hotel brand, level complementary of preliminary designs, currently in the pre-app stage with the city, expected to file an application imminently. SHG is presenting a proposal to CET's board at its meeting on next Tuesday. Additionally, for Workforce, CET has partnered with PCC on a cohort 1 of Core C2C machining and micro accreditation program in fall 2024. We'll be recruiting students and employers for a cohort 2 that will be underway. The course begins in mid-February. Contact Paul for more information on that. PCC is hosting an event at the PCC OMIC Training Center on January 30th. He sent an attachment. I think NJ would be able to share it out with everybody. And the public is invited to this event that they're hosting. Okay, well, there's all that.
Will you tell us about that event?
I believe it's basically they're showing off the makerspace, showing off some of the tools that they have, and the programming, I believe. But the flyer has a little more details. Maybe NJ can pull it up while I continue to ramble. Additionally, for the Small Business Development Center, some updates from us is that we have a survey out right now. We're asking businesses, as we keep planning free classes for business owners, what topics are they most interested in? So we have about 30 other topics that business owners will let us know. But for now, we have our next class next February, and that will be on the topic of business plans. So we're excited to do that. We just did a class this morning on the topic of credit and lending, and that was really great. Had a great turnout in St. Helens. So we continue to rotate those classes. We shoot for Class Kenai and Scappoose. We rotate those bi-monthly. We rotate Class Kenai Rainier bi-monthly, and we try to get to Vernonia at least once a quarter. So that's how those classes go.
How do you pick the businesses that you survey?
It's a really wide open invite. Any business that wants to take the survey, we're asking them to. So, yeah. There's a flyer about manufacturing. Yes, I'll leave that up there for you guys to read through. So yes, continuing in the wheelhouse of things I know about. Keep It Local. We're doing well with our holiday campaign. I've been counting the cards. Still have to get the total tally, which I'll have for tomorrow's drawing with the Wonderland cards. But I will say the Scappoose box is up from last year. I think it was like over $10,000 increase, I think around. So I was happy to see that for Scappoose. And then all the other boxes are up too. So that's a good sign. But on the ground, as I'm talking to owners and gathering supplies, I will say that there is a theme across the county that sales are kind of they weren't as good as previous holiday seasons. So that was an interesting tidbit as I keep going around. Also, while I was going around, it was cool to see the new rental spaces that are available and then the new ramen shop coming into Scappoose. So it looks like there's some great activity and opportunities for putting more people into spaces. So. Tourism wise, since we're the destination management organization of the county as well, Travel Oregon had its grant competitive application open and they just closed it, I think, Tuesday. CET has applied for it, and there's some other community organizations that I believe have applied for it, but we won't know all those names yet. CET is applying for a brand marketing execution capacity, participating with the Travel Oregon Media Day in March, and we're sponsoring our own branding agency a workshop at the Governor's Tourism Conference in April in Portland. Let's see, 2 additional upcoming CET board and member functions. We're working through a strategic planning workshop driven here soon as part of the BRE project that I'll be sharing soon. We're continuing to work on the countywide economic development vision with all of our partners, including the city. But we're also internally working on our own strategic plan for CET, which will be exciting. And then CET's Member Legislative Forum. We are, with the 2025 legislative long session underway, CET is inviting our state senator and representatives to a forum to hear and discuss legislative priorities of CET local government, organizational, and business members. We're scheduling is still underway, but we're likely going to hold this event in February. And that is everything on his list.
Wow. Brian had a question.
Yeah, on the very first item you listed, the one that might potentially generate over 200 jobs.
Yeah, Project Spice.
If I understand it correctly, there was an issue where they wanted a 10-year tax abatement. Did that get resolved?
That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse.
He might not know.
Yeah, I know that there's
Looks like he knows.
going for the enterprise zone, but
They will be seeking some level of a long-term enterprise zone abatement if they choose this location. That abatement is, I think, 5 to 15 years, and it's all based off of negotiation. It's not a 100% abatement if they do take that route. Columbia County hasn't done a long-term abatement before. We've done short-term. The long-term abatement under this scenario would actually be less tax savings than a series of short-term abatements that they could easily qualify for. But they would like a little bit of a more long-term assurance is something that they're interested in. I think it'd be 10 years might be reasonable on something that they would end up asking for, but that would include negotiations with like fire district. Schools actually under that program still receive money. And there's quite a lot of negotiation that happens to not just have a 100% property tax abatement, but that is on the table. It's something that they're very interested in.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions? Awesome. Yeah, I forgot to clarify, my role within CET is small business focused. Paul does more of the recruitment angle. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. You can, they normally just pass the microphone away, so around, so you can stay there because nobody ever comes up to the chair. Scappoose City Council. Joe's going to do it? Okay. Hey, Joe. Oh, he goes up to the thing.
Welcome, thank you. Yes, it's Jeanette is not here. Quick updates. Right now, we have April 5th scheduled for our annual town meeting. We're going over that, how the topics and what we're going to be doing about that. January 25th, we do have our council goal setting retreat. So we'll talk more about the annual town meeting there. And also thank you guys for giving us recommendations for goals. We welcomed on Joel Haugen as a new city council. So now we're full 7 of us, 6 and 1. So we're ready to go. The council goal session will be a kind of our big thing going forward, kind of setting our agenda for the year, what we want to work on. Trying to think if there's anything else important or pressing at this time, or if there's any questions you guys have, but that's kind of where we are right now. We're just kind of ready. We have canceled a meeting or two, just haven't had a lot on the agenda right now, a few resolutions, but been somewhat slow. But I think it's going to start picking up here in February.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Columbia County. Mr. Casey Garrett.
Hello, nice to see you all again. It's been a little while. I
So
might have
long.
missed last one that we had updates. I'm not sure. It's been a busy few months. The biggest update is our legislative session, I guess, for us. The Association of Oregon Counties, which we're a part of, has 6 steering committees. I chair the Governance, Revenue, and Economic Development Steering Committee. Our priorities moving into this session, assessment and taxation funding. That's what the county mainly does for business and bring in revenue and distributes to all the districts and the cities. The funding that has historically come from the state to support that program has not kept up with the need. It hasn't increased for the past somewhere around 20 years. So there are some ideas on how to increase and stabilize that funding to support the assessment and taxation program that gets us all the operating funds that cities and counties need. Tax foreclosure surpluses have been on hold. We continued to foreclose on properties because we're legally required to, but a Supreme Court case a couple years ago or a year or so ago put all of Oregon foreclosures kind of in a weird spot. We used to account for them as a whole, so every foreclosed property kind of went into a bank and the expenses incurred to deal with those properties essentially worked as a write-off, and the county would, once selling the properties, would distribute 85 or so % of those dollars to the taxing districts and keep somewhere around 12% for county costs associated with those. Now we have to find a way to individually account for every single property and distribute the funds. It's a mess to maybe specific lien holders and child support, you name it, because of the Supreme Court precedent that's been set. So it's complicated things, and there's no legal way in Oregon to deal with foreclosures right now until legislature gets the rules cleared up. So we are working in county interest to get that cleaned up and to not make it too much of a burden or more of a burden than need be on counties at least. Travel lodging tax, TLT, Scappoose has one. There's proposed legislation to tweak the 70-30, 70% required to be spent on tourism related stuff and 30% spent on whatever the jurisdiction deems is necessary to spend that on. Roads, sidewalks, law enforcement, public safety currently are not allowable expenses for 70% of those TLT funds, which a lot of tourism areas are saying that they need extra law enforcement, road improvements, sidewalk improvements to support tourism. So there's a big push to try to change that 70-30 split and make that spending more flexible, allowable spending more flexible. Recreational immunity, I'm not sure if you guys heard, but the last couple of years, things like the Crown Z Trail, counties and cities have had this thing called recreational immunity. If someone, since we don't charge for the use of those facilities, other than the parking area sometimes, if somebody trips on a trail, the liability is a lot less, or there's a certain level of immunity for cities and counties, so we can have those spaces open to the public. A woman somewhere in Oregon on her way on a path to a beach slipped on a bridge and broke her leg, which challenged the recreational immunity status that we've all had. There's been a temporary solution in place that expires this coming year to expand the definition of recreation. So she argued that she was walking to a place to recreate and not recreating yet, so she ended up getting a settlement. So there's a proposed language to clean that up and expand what recreating means, and walking on a path that's built towards a place to recreate. Hopefully we'll clean it up where walking is included in recreating, even if it's on your way to that location.
OMG.
Yes, that'd be one way to say it. Procurement, city, county government procurement. We are, one of our policy priorities is to make the procurement rules slightly more flexible in some areas for capital projects. As many of you probably understand, government projects cost a lot of money and are very complicated, and that's all designed to make things more fair and protect public dollars. The reality is oftentimes it does the opposite and makes things more complicated, more costly. So there's going to be some effort to open up flexibility with procurement rules. I'm not extremely confident that that'll be all that successful, but maybe we'll get some wins there. Industrial lands program for industrial lands that are essentially abandoned or not occupied and have hazardous waste. We have a lot of them throughout the state. That there's a program put in place to provide funding to help jurisdictions clean up those lands and make them marketable. That program got renewed with no funding, so this session we will try to actually get funding to go into that program to help with those efforts. Fairgrounds funding is a big one, and how lottery dollars are allocated to mostly counties that have fairgrounds. There's I believe a 1.6 million statewide cap on how that money gets distributed. So Columbia County gets enough for maybe half of an employee, which isn't enough to actually run a fairgrounds program. So many fairgrounds like ours is primarily volunteers and temp employees. The goal is to increase up to 1% of lottery proceeds. It won't get that high, but could fairly drastically increase fairground funding and allow us to actually have dedicated staff at fairgrounds throughout the state. So we are on board with trying to increase funding for that. And then Oregon Business and Industry Association, they have produced a agenda, and we will be working through their agenda to see how our steering committee can support their efforts. And I encourage everyone to go on to OBI's website and look up this packet here. It's their 2025 agenda and analysis and policy priorities, broken down to 3 areas: modernize agency rulemaking and permitting, remove unnecessary operational barriers, and establish a welcoming environment for business, make Oregon more affordable, and improve its tax climate. And these priorities are based on a fairly scathing report on Oregon ranking almost dead last in all the areas you don't want to rank dead last on: tax friendliness, business friendliness. I'd recommend the read. Contact our local legislators and see what we can do to support Oregon Business Industries agenda to try to get Oregon to be more competitive on the national stage. With that, that's kind of going to be the theme over the next 6 months for me, spending a lot of time in Salem, advocating for county interest, and fingers crossed get a couple wins in the process.
Great job. Thank you so much, Casey. We have someone from OMIC? CC? Columbia County? I think we do. Ms. Nancy Ward?
As long as I'm here. Yes, well, I think Paul was kind enough to give you the overview that was, to us, the most important thing that's happened recently. But I do have more information to expound on the next permitting process. They did receive the okay from DEQ. That was next.
Thank you.
So this is all about the next renewable
Okey-dokey.
fuels in Clascanai, Port Westward. And but further, the next big hurdle is the Corps of Engineers and the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement. So they expect to have that to the Corps probably this month, next month at the latest. And then from there, it will go to public. So there will be a series of public hearings around that EIS impact statement. And then they will be taking this all under advisement, and we hope to have next hopes to have a decision by the fall of this year. So they, in case you're not real familiar, they have probably been at this for about 7 to 8 years now.
Wow.
And the lease that the port gave them, that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And from that point on, it's all been this slow move towards getting all the permits. And when I say slow, I can't emphasize that enough. And speaking to the problems that we have, and it's not just Oregon, it's permitting nationwide. And somebody like myself who really believes in oversight, it's hard. There's no way to justify how long all of these things take. And just the fact that they have hung in, they being next, has hung in here is really amazing. And I'm not quite sure how they've been able to afford it, but I'm sure that they have it all penciled out as to why this is important and possible. The possibilities that are in front of them apparently make it worth their while. And it will be such a game changer in our county. It's really, they will become the highest taxpayer in the county. And that is, it's sad. It's sad that this is taking so long for something so important to our county, which is the tax base. And I will have to say that as me personally, until I was an elected official, I never realized how important this tax base is. And yeah, so what do we need to do here in Columbia County? We now have, Port has several other prospects in the offing. I hope in the next month or so I'll be able to come and tell you that we've been successful in these efforts. But really, the reason I'm here at these meetings with you is, why is this so difficult for Columbia County in particular to attract business when all the counties around us are not having these same problems? So everything that you're doing is really important. And the communication that we have between our agencies is really important. And the more we can work together and come to some cohesive way forward, the better off we're all going to be. And I'm just saying, the Port's there. We're with you. You know, whatever we can do to help you in your efforts, we are happy to do, because this is getting to be hard to understand how all the counties around us are prospering and growing, and we are not. So sorry to be a downer at the at the
Thank you,
first of
Nancy.
the year, but
We
we're
appreciate
being,
you.
yeah, I mean, you all know, I'm not telling you anything. I'm preaching to the choir, but I do think that acting in silos is not helpful. And the more that we can coordinate, especially being a small county, it's not that hard. It's pretty easy. But you have to have a willingness to do it. And you have to have a willingness to not just look at your piece of the pie, but to look at the big picture. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what we can all do together in this coming year. Thanks.
Thank you. That section's very quiet today. Hello. Everybody's coming up. Yeah.
Well, we want to
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
I want to thank Nancy. I think that what she says about everybody working together is huge. And that's the problem that the PUD is running into, is the transmission issues. And so Michael Sykes and Brandon, our engineering operations manager, they continue to work really hard with BPA and PGE and anybody else that we can to get these transmission capacity issues all under control. But it's a long process, and they'll keep plugging along. And then the only other update we have is that we have a new board member who just started. He is replacing Russ Hubbard, who took a position, or who was actually elected to the city council in St. Helens. So Joe Leibelt has started and will attend his first meeting at the end of this month.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Scappoose Public Library.
Jeff, it's your
Library.
turn.
I can follow along on the agenda just like everybody. We had a record use and circulation year. We circulated over 100,000 items, and record building usage. This summer, of course, we have, in cooperation with the city, the 7 major events planned again, like we did last year. Late summer, early fall, we're going to be doing a Columbia County Reads project with Willie Bloughton. And that would roll out towards the middle of July. Other than that, that's about the major things that I have.
Thank you. Lori? Lori,
Yes.
hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, so I'll share a few things just on the planning sort of side of things. We have a number of applications in review. We have a rezone application and conditional use permit for a new self-storage facility on the Cinnamon Tree parcel. That is under completeness review. There's also a 36-unit apartment complex, Northwest First Street, that came through and had approval, some number of years ago, maybe 4 years ago or so. So that's being resurrected and is under review. We also have the Grace Lutheran Children's Center looking to do a addition of 1 building that would have 2 new classroom capability for their use. That's just a minor approval since they already have that use there on their site. We also have a pre-application, actually just after this meeting, for a text amendment to add hotels as a conditional use to the light industrial zone. This would be in support of the hotel project that Sierra mentioned in Paul's update.
Used to be part of that.
Once that text amendment is approved or, kind of following at the same time, we would expect a conditional use application for approval of a hotel. We do have planning commission scheduled to hear the WANA Credit Union application on March 13th. So we're happy to see that moving forward. That would be located just south of the Bimart building. We have a number of projects in construction document review, including the Buxton Ranch subdivision. That's 44 lots. Oxbow headquarters is just about approved in terms of plan review. The Casey Street house or the Remax office is undergoing site development plan review. Huser subdivision is through plan review. They're kind of buttoned up for the winter. We expect them to start constructing roads and utilities closer to spring, summer. That's 37 lots. And then Dutch Canyon 4 is currently under construction, and that's 33 lots. Jeff, question? Let's see, 50-year plan. It is needed housing. Yeah, when it's done, yes, I understand.
The road is in dire straits
It's been rough. It's been rough. It'll be great when it's done.
for you guys,
Yeah, it's tough.
not for us.
50-year plan is still in a holding pattern. We are working through issues around the transportation planning rule analysis related to the rezoned parcels we're looking at. And then just slow moving coordination with DLCD on some of the UGB analysis work. It is moving, but it's moving slowly. Just really trying to keep that project going. Anyhow, that's kind of the high level things. There's lots of other things going on in the background, and I hope to share more with you next month as things sort of get finalized on a few other items.
Going back to your very first thing, the cinnamon tree and
Yeah.
the mini storage that you mentioned,
Yes,
or are they taking the cinnamon tree, that building out?
yes, that would be removed as part of this project. Yep,
How many units? Is it a big?
it's large. It's large. I don't recall how many units, do you?
I don't either.
They're
It's amazing how many mini storage. Never
I
enough.
did ask if they had done a study, and you assume if someone's going to put this amount of money into a project that they would have done that, and they did, and they showed a need for that. So for the region, so they would more or less utilize that site as much as they could.
Yeah, it's not an exact count, but they're proposing for the facility itself to be 4.7 acres.
Right.
Yeah, so not a unit count, but gives you an idea.
About a 9-acre parcel. Some of it's just constrained though. So
Oh, RV storage.
yeah, I don't know if that's on the current plan. I know it was talked about. Unless they're inside, it's all inside. There's no like outdoor RV storage that's currently proposed on that site. So,
Okay.
happy to answer any questions anyone has. Yeah. I don't. That was something the developer did outside of our land use process. It was specific to mini storage use. Mhm. It would be something that they paid for. It's not like a public document that we have on our desk that somebody could request. So you really would have to reach out to that developer and ask for that permission to have access to it. And if you're interested, just send me an email. Perfect. You bet.
Sierra, you are up again for your soft shoe. Oh, a soft shoe is a dance. I know, that's why I said it. I like, I doesn't even know what soft shoe is.
Awesome.
Yes, so I'm excited to do this presentation today. I forgot to introduce myself.
Oh, give me 1 sec.
You are.
That was fun.
Look at that.
I forgot to give my title earlier. As part of the Columbia Economic Team, I'm a small business specialist of the team. I usually oversee the Keep It Local program and help with the Small Business Development Center, and I'm kind of the one that just floats around and does odds and ends too. And one of those things is this Business Community Connection Project was a initiative that really we got inspired to do to really understand what is it like to do business here in Columbia County, and we had a lot of partners involved. So today is a presentation of all the data and what this project has been, and insights into Scappoose. So we'll go next slide. I feel like I'm like in space. Is it working now? Cool.
Like when I click space.
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome. So yes, the Business Community Connection Project has been an initiative that has combined a proven model based off of the University of Minnesota is what this model comes from. Direct interviews and data analysis and collaboration to create an informed shared vision for economic development here in the county. And so the goals of this project has been one, to support, retain, and grow local businesses here in the county. Second, to strengthen the partnerships and collaboration within Columbia County's business ecosystem. And I loved some of the comments already in the room about collaboration, and this project is very based on collaboration. And then third, to establish and implement a shared county-wide strategic plan that we'll be able to implement and then renew every 3 to 5 years. And so this basically what we did. And next slide is we included 25 partners and over 55 volunteers to help us do interviews with businesses all across the county. And so you can see this big long list of all of our partners, including the city. And so we went around and interviewed businesses, and again, shows really how collaborative this project has been. So next slide. What we did together is that we completed 75 business interviews all across the county. Each interview was at least an hour long, though quite a few of them went over. And we went through about like 30 questions with them, asking them, you know, what is it like to do business here? What are the challenges? What are the struggles? All these different dimensions, and we'll run through the answers of those questions. So here's a participation. You can see in Scappoose in the Warren area, we had about 24 businesses participate, representing 27% of all businesses that participated. And then industries, we were very intentional to represent not only the geography of Columbia County, but also the types of businesses in the county. So you'll be able to see agriculture, non-manufacturing, manufacturing, professional services, and then retail, food, and tourism, kind of the catch-all for a lot of other businesses. Additionally, we were intentional about representing businesses of all sizes. So we did micro businesses, those like 0 to 5 employees, to like the largest employers in Columbia County. Some of our interviews were like in the corporate CEO office, and other interviews were around a dining room table. So it was kind of fun in that way to get all these different kinds of perspectives. Next slide. So yes, that's a little bit of like the methodology. And if you ever have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to let me know. But we're going to dive into the data. So first, understanding Columbia County's business landscape. So businesses here in Columbia County, like how many businesses are, this is based off of Your Economy, a tool provided by Business Oregon. So St. Helens is the main city that has the most number of businesses, about 574 businesses in the county, followed by Scappoose, which has 435, about 27% in the county. In total, Columbia County has about 1,587 establishments. Next slide. This was going into the questions what we were asking. So we asked them, hey, did you start your business in the county or did you locate in the county? And it's actually quite great to see that so many of our businesses are homegrown, about 80% started in Columbia County. Additionally, the main business type is LLC, followed by sole proprietorships. And I was happy to see LLCs be so high because, you know, especially with our advising, too often we talk to sole proprietors and we're like, oh no, have a level of degree protection. So it's good to see some diversification. Next slide. Ownership here in Columbia County, the average years owning a business is about 13 years. Average ownership is about 1.6, which you can really see a breakdown right there. About 50% of businesses here in the county are one owner owned. 42% are 2 owners, and then 9% are 3 or more. Then for average age of business, we got representation all across. And you'll see kind of, it's interesting, the average age is 25 years, which is quite impressive. I will say though, there's a little bit of a skew because we were purposeful in like interviewing manufacturers who can be like 100 years plus. So that's why we have this bar graph that breaks it down even further into like different categories. And you'll start to see there are more younger businesses in that way. Demographics, this is actually really intriguing, especially when you compare it to national data. So 58% of businesses here in Columbia County are owned and managed by women, followed by 39% men and then 4% other. The average age here of business owners is 48 years old. And then I was intrigued to see this. The main generation owning businesses is Gen X at 50% almost, followed by millennials. And it looks like boomers are already starting to like pass the baton. And Gen Z is already making a scene. So that was interesting. And then 6% were minority owned, 3% veteran, and 3% was LGBTQIA. Slide. Then we asked the question, in the last 3 years, we did these interviews, I forgot to mention, in May through June last year. So in 2024. And so we asked them, in the last 3 years, has your employment grown, decreased, stayed the same? And this is really encouraging when you remember the pandemic's in there. So about 37% of businesses said they grew, 36% said they stayed the same, and then much less said they decreased. When we asked them in the next 3 years, do you anticipate any of these changes? 60% of businesses plan to keep adapting and change their goods and services or technology, expand. 17% said sell, close, or transfer. And every time that we saw anything that would be a red flag or someone said they might close or needed some resources, our team was dedicated to helping them and just asking more and getting them the resources. So this wasn't just a give us data, bye. So we made sure to follow up on a lot of this. Next slide. So here in Scappoose, we were able to complete 15 interviews within the city. And so you can see kind of compared to the county, Scappoose in the average age of a business is actually younger, which is intriguing. So where the county's average was 25, Scappoose is 18, but the years managing a business is higher. So it seems like businesses are younger here, but the owners are more experienced. So the average was 15 years. And then you can see a breakdown of the sizes of businesses we interviewed there. Next slide. Scappoose on that question where we asked about what happens to your employment base. You can see here that 21% of businesses said they've grown, 43% that said they stayed the same, and then 36% said they decreased, which is quite interesting to see. Not so much growth compared to the county. Either they stayed the same or decreased, which is quite staggering when you look at the decrease compared to the county too, which is also intriguing here. Next one. So this is Columbia County's population data. I thought it would just be interesting to share it. So I'll quickly run through these ones. So population change over 2020 to 2023. This is provided by the PSU population data. So Columbia County overall has increased. And you can see a breakdown of each of the cities here. And so Scappoose has increased by 2.9%. The city that's growing the fastest is St. Helens, and then Clatskanie, and then Scappoose. And then I was intrigued to see unincorporated be so low. You know, you always hear about people like relocating and out of the city to Columbia County, but it seems like we actually had a decrease in population in the more rural areas. Next slide.
Does Warren counts as unincorporated, doesn't it?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So this is the population forecast for Columbia County starting in 2023 all the way to 2074. And as you can see here, we continue to expect like population growth here in the county over like about the next 20 years. But just like national data that we're seeing, it's going to start kind of going down. And that's largely because the boomer population is retiring and, you know, passing on. And so the generations that are following them are not as big. They're not entering the workforce as large. So Columbia County around the 2070 is going to start seeing a population decline. And then this kind of breaks that down further. So this is the population pyramid. You'll see right currently in 2024, our population pyramid by age is pretty even across the generations. So we have a good mix between those in their 70s and 30s and even 20s. But by the time we get to 2054, it's more pear-shaped. And so most of our generations and citizens are going to be around their 60s, maybe 40s, and then much less people are going to be in their younger ages here in the county. Next slide. So what is it like to do business here in Columbia County and Scappoose? These slides dive into that. So we asked overall, after we went through like all these different considerations for what it's like to do business, this was like one of our last questions. What is your overall opinion of doing business in the county? And the county got an average of 3.31, which is basically to say like it's okay, it's not bad, it's not good, it's just kind of meh, so of course we want to see that be higher and get closer to the above average. It's leaning towards more positivity, but it's not quite there. Next slide. This shows a breakdown per city. And so as you can see here in Scappoose almost got first place, just behind Vernonia. And so the ranking was 3.6, which is getting closer to that like above average. And that's a positive thing to see here in this community.
But you had only interviewed 15 businesses in Scappoose, correct?
Yeah, within the city limits. There was 27 in the area.
Okay.
Yeah, and then 75 businesses overall. Best things about doing business in Columbia County. So the top things this was an open-ended question. They could write really whatever they felt. And so the best things about doing business here is community support, friendly relationships, small town feel, lots of mushy-gushy feeling stuff. So it's interesting to see a lot of people, they do business here because they feel connected to the community or their families and all that type of stuff. But when you see the next slide, one of the most challenging things about doing business here, it kind of dives a little more into some business decisions, like the customer base rose right up to the top, which you'll see a slide here soon, why that's such an issue here. Skilled labor, a continual theme. You'll see we're really lacking a labor force, and with that population pyramid I showed earlier, it's going to continue to exacerbate as an issue. Business costs, government coordination, and then it breaks down further from there. Next slide. So this shows the commuting rate here in Columbia County. So when that last slide said customer base is a challenge, this really points to why. So we have about just shy of 6,000 jobs stay within the county. Just shy of 5,000 people commute into the county, and then basically 18,000 people leave every day. So we hear that stat, like 73% people that live in Columbia County work outside the county, but this really shows the flow of that, and it's really intriguing to see such leakage of our talent, which when we're thinking about labor, and you'll see labor come up over and over again, I think this is also an opportunity. Like we have talented labor that's leaving our community. So how do we capture that and keep it in our community rather than some other communities are like, we just have nobody and we don't know how to fill these jobs. Our jobs are just leaving. Anyways, so this question was more in the one-on-one interview instead of the pre-survey that we had. And so we asked, like, what is the greatest challenge your business is facing rather than a community perspective? And that changed. So labor now rose right to the top, followed by financial constraints, construction and parking, which was a lot of St. Helens downtown stuff, regulations and bureaucracy, marketing awareness, and so on and so forth. Then we asked the businesses to rank, like, what are the most challenging things on this list for your business? And then we took the average of that, ranked it by relevance, which is like challenges most experienced by businesses here in the county. And the number one challenge there is finding employees, followed by marketing and awareness of my business, then making a profit, finding access to capital, and then finding available land and buildings. And then it goes down to like state, county, city regulations, under management, product service, other types of things, as you'll see there. Next slide. In Scappoose, the picture is similar, but a little different. So on the same question, state regulatory obstacles and costs rises right to the top, and county and city. So basically every option that was regulatory here in Scappoose was in the top 5 challenges. And then available land and buildings is also rose, where that was like number 5 on the countywide. It's number 2 in Scappoose. And then finding employees dropped down to the 3rd greatest challenge. So those are the top 5 challenges here in Scappoose. Next slide. So these are economic factors that we asked businesses to go through, and they ranked each one. And so we'll go through the averages on a countywide level. So we asked businesses when you're ranking the quality of our workforce, like how do you feel about each of these things on a scale from very dissatisfied to very satisfied? So you'll see kind of more on the averages on the right side there. Yellows are kind of on the dissatisfied level. Greens are more on positive. And so businesses are satisfied with things like availability of unskilled labor and the union presence, but dissatisfied with wage rates, availability of skilled labor, and employee healthcare costs. Next slide. I also have some quotes. Every quote that's in green came specifically from Scappoose, and then some are just countywide themes that we just saw across the board. So in Scappoose, one owner said, many employees demonstrate a lack of confidence and hold themselves back from taking on other roles. Another owner in the county said, can't compete with Portland, and sometimes Longview is a challenge, referencing wages. Another owner said, this is a place that has a high cost of living considering its location. We're on a rural community, yet the wages are relatively low. Next slide. For quality of education and training, businesses are pretty happy with university degrees, nearby technical trades, community college certifications, and PCC's OMIC degrees. And if we actually ranked this by average instead of relevance, PCC OMIC has the highest average. So the people that are aware of it really like what PCC is up to. But as you can see by end values, only 29 businesses really had an opinion on it. So there's a lack of awareness, but for those that are aware of what PCC is up to, they're really happy with it. Businesses are dissatisfied with the K-12 schools and upskilling opportunities in my area, which upskilling is like post-educational, adult educational opportunities or classes. Next one, some quotes here in Scappoose. PCC OMIC is still very new. I'm excited to see how it turns out. Giving our local kids the opportunity to get into the trades is great. Another owner said there's a lack of collaboration between all the workforce groups, CTS in the high schools, educational service district, workforce boards. The ecosystem has a lot of redundancies and overlap. What is the map of groups, roles, and responsibilities? State and federal level organizations do not always understand the problems of the local level that they're facing, and they make recommendations that are not always applicable, which I thought was really insightful, that business owner to say it. So. For quality of transportation, business owners are pretty much across the board happy with most of this. So highway accessibility, proximity to the customer market, railroad, and air are all positive. The only thing that was ranked low was transit and local transportation. Next slide. Some quotes here. There are people who don't move to Scappoose as there aren't services or transportation needed here. And then speed reductions in the area, I think they're implying it's needed. It's a dangerous highway area. Next slide. Quality of land, buildings, and credit. As you can see here, everything is negatively ranked or very negatively ranked. So business owners are dissatisfied with things like availability of land loans, and cost of building and land loans, and then very dissatisfied with cost of land, cost of commercial buildings, and availability of commercial buildings. And that kind of ties into that Scappoose themed earlier where we saw Scappoose has a shortage of inventory in commercial space. Let's see.
I think these two, Brian.
Right now, I would say have a vacancy now. Issue is so cost issue for a lot of small businesses. Gravitate small commercial landlord. I know other gravitate towards small units because of affordability, but developers are not going to want to build very small units. We're talking 500 square feet because 500 square feet, it's almost impossible to make any money on it because your infrastructure costs. You got to have parking, you got to have bathrooms, you got to have electric panels, have a heating cooling system. And by the time you do all that, your 500 square foot unit costs almost as much as 1,000. So people are, there's a need for small, basically incubators. I had a small space that was 256 square feet. It rented in about a month.
It's longer than that.
Month and a half. Even small ones still don't go super quick. The real issue is affordability. And And the affordability gets back to cost of land, cost of construction, cost of finance. Cost of permits, yeah, SDCs and all that have gone up substantially. Not saying the city doesn't need their money. But just the whole cost structure's gone up. And so but there is stuff available. What's not available really is in light industrial. So like flex units, where you have a roll-up door and I have people call me all the time asking me if I have anything like that, where you have an office, but also have a warehouse. There's a demand for that. I think, but again, there's a problem there. People want to pay about $1 a square foot for something like that.
We do.
And at $1 a square foot, your construction cost for that almost as high as it is to build office space, or apartments. So then what ends up happening is all the money ends up going into apartments and houses because that's where the money is.
Many stores.
Apartments will rent for $2 a square foot. City of Scappoose, 1,000 square foot space is probably somewhere in the $1.40 to $1.50, no extra back charging. So you really have, if you have commercially zoned land, you're generally going to gravitate towards apartments unless you have a bigger picture in mind.
For many storage. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a multifaceted issue. I mean, all of this is that is the ecosystem of business development here. You know, there's always a push and pull behind everything, though I don't want to discount any of the opinions of our businesses that we interviewed too, and their struggle to be able to find space. But totally also reasonable with the other side of it too. So other comments, let's see. Okay, yes, so some quotes here. There's not much available. If you want to purchase land or build on in the commercial areas, you have to work with the city of Scappoose, ODOT, a lot of government entities, along with the highway is also the only property worth buying or building on, but you have to go through a lot. The current buildings that that come available to rent or buy are not in the best shape or quality. Another business owner said availability is difficult because you may be able to purchase it, but you may not be able to get it permitted. There are a lot of wetlands around Scappoose, which is often a roadblock to properties. Next slide. For quality of capital access, this was also all negative. So capital is an issue and accessibility to it. So business owners are dissatisfied with things like adult financial education opportunities, availability of business loans, availability of startup loans, and Business Oregon's loan offerings. Next slide. Additionally, the SBDC, one quote was saying the SBDC is doing a great job with educating, and then some very common themes across the county was when they were asked about startup loans or business loans, they were like, are there any? That was a very common response. So either those that have sought loan offerings in the county were dissatisfied with it. One quote was even like, it felt like I was being like paper cutted to death in like all the different things they were asking me for. And then the other most common responses were like, I don't know. So that was interesting. Yeah, business owner said, with our credit card with a local institution, it was very difficult. It felt we were being picked apart, was a quote. Next slide.
That seems to make sense.
A what?
Makes sense. I mean, a lender wants to really know that you're going to put forth a profitable business. And if you don't going out for a loan and you don't have skin in the game, we want to know that you're capable.
Yeah, it's always the tug and pull. Let's see, let's go. Yes, quality of utilities. So business owners are pretty much across the board pretty happy with everything, from water and natural gas, electricity. The only things that were ranked negatively were all the things related to broadband. So broadband availability, broadband speed, and broadband cost were all on the dissatisfied level. Next slide. Let's see, some quotes here is the internet has had more access and cost has gotten better, is what one Scappoose owner said. Another Scappoose owner said Columbia River PUD is fantastic to work with. And then another said the utilities are a good thing in Columbia County, all caps. So that is good to see that our PUDs are serving businesses well. For quality of retail and local business support, business owners are happy with businesses supporting one another, customer service, citizens supporting local businesses, feeling of safety, wayfinding signage, citizens in the other cities supporting them, and chamber programs. They're dissatisfied with things like parking, variety of places to eat, overall appearance of the area, the county, city, and state elected officials or staff supporting businesses, variety of businesses, and the lowest ranked was incentives offered for investment in facilities, workers, and or skills. Next slide. Scappoose is not a pretty town, one owner said. It does not have a good walking path or bike path. It feels disjointed. Vernonia did a good job. Another owner said, a lack of downtown area. It would be nice if the buildings had a coordinated theme, like an incentive or assistance to clean up the buildings. Downtown needs a presence. Another Scappoose owner said, city staff and leaders could do a better job. They don't reach out to us. This is actually a theme across the county where, you know, not many of the cities felt like or the business owners felt like the city's staff weren't saying hi to them very often. So I wouldn't say this is just Scappoose. Businesses in Columbia County, small and large, do a great job of finding synergies and a way to work together. So there's a positive comment in there too. Next slide. Quality of government and regulations. Businesses are happy with the fire, the city, the police department, county business fees, environmental regulations, county planning and zoning, and county code enforcement. And dissatisfied with street maintenance, city code enforcement, and city planning and zoning. Slide. In Scappoose, there was really only one comment on this area. The county's planning and zoning has gotten harder to work with, is what one owner said. Next slide. Quality of life. This is very strongly opinionated on both sides. So business owners are very happy with volunteer opportunities, a sense of community belonging, and recreational opportunities, dissatisfied with housing supply and availability of childcare, and then very dissatisfied with housing costs, adequate healthcare facilities, and childcare costs. Quotes here in Scappoose and across the county. As one owner in Scappoose said, people move here for a sense of community. Another said, we've heard anecdotally that the childcare costs are high and not even available. We were almost at the point of having to set up an internal childcare because employees needed it. Another county quote was, the port is doing great stuff and it's okay. Some other comment in there. Oh, there, let's see. We don't have enough living wage jobs, and I think that impacts quality of life. Was a really key comment and a theme across the board. Next slide. Ideas and solutions. So not only did we ask all these things about what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, but we asked owners like, what would you like to see to overcome some of these things? So as you can see in the next slide, if you put on your Eagle Vision, the top 5 requested economic solutions on the question of there are many ways to support and grow Columbia County's local economy. In your opinion, please rank how important each of these solutions could be. They were on a scale of like 1 to 4. They could only give a 4 up to 3 times. So that's how this is weighted. The top 5 requests are first, more CTE programming in the high schools, which is like career educational opportunities. And another common theme is not only is that like teaching the trades or something like that, but also like teaching kids soft skills was another thing business owners said is they would like to see more like how to shake a hand, how to like, you know, put in a resume or talk to people were other parts of CTE. Second is revitalize downtown areas. Third, more efforts to encourage local shoppings. Fourth, advocate for businesses better in local and state issues. And 5th, develop and restore more commercial buildings, followed by ensure the county processes and regulations are more business friendly, develop more housing, better market Columbia County to visitors, more training classes and opportunities, and then it kind of drops off from there. In Scappoose, the picture is a little different. So yes, CTE programming is still ranked as #1 top request. But then right after that, revitalize downtown areas is the second. Third is develop and restore more commercial buildings was a third top request. Fourth was more training classes and certification opportunities, and that's specifically for employees. And then 5th, develop more shovel-ready land in the county, which is also intriguing because we have a lot of shovel-ready land, so there also might be a lack of awareness of what we do have here, but is intriguing insights. So yes, next steps. This one I don't think I've quite updated to where we are now. Basically, where we're at is we had a task force retreat with all those partners, entities, and we met together, went through this data, and we've created the preliminary like county-wide vision, and we're now creating the document for that. We'll revise it and then publish it, and then we'll be working together on a county-wide level to tackle the top challenges here as a community. The last thing I forgot to mention earlier too is that this project had 75 interviews, 1-hour interviews, and we did courses from the University of Minnesota to learn this whole project and this model. And based off that, we found that most communities for our size complete up to like 30 interviews is the typical across the nation. Maybe some of them have gotten to like around 50 and very few have ever gotten to our number. So we are really proud of getting to 75 interviews too. So we think it gives us a really good snapshot of like what's going on here in the county, and it actually gives us now data to inform decisions rather than like shooting from the hip and be like, oh, I heard that, so I think we need to do this. Now we can create informed decisions for how we develop the economy here. So thank you for listening. Are there any questions in the room or from anybody? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so selection was in half of it I would say was randomized. So we were just like took a list of all the businesses in the county and just like pooled. The other part was that we were intentional wanting to get a certain number of businesses in different industries. So just make sure we got enough manufacturers, make sure we got enough farmers. So when we were running into like the randomization, not having enough of those, we would ask for referrals from our partners and be like, okay, Port, is there anyone of your tenants that you really want to make sure we talk to? Or so we asked our partners to also give us recommendations. Yes, of all the different industries. Yes, that was in an earlier slide. Yeah. 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 And I forgot to mention too, we have all these reports to share. And so I can probably send it to NJ, and it has a city breakdown. We have 5 reports. One's doing business in the county, one's a demographic report, one is a city breakdown report, top challenges in the county, and a summary. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Christine.
Well, Judy can go first.
Okay, thank you. I noticed that some of the upcoming sessions that I believe the SBDC has been promoting are addressing some of the concerns regarding loans and credits and things. Is that a result of the information that you gleaned from the survey? Or
Yes,
does that just happen to coincide?
Yeah, I think in part it happened to coincide with WANA being our sponsor for the small business classes, but also on top of that, we are being intentional with all of our programming in-house to try to tackle these challenges more. And when earlier we gave our report that we're about to go into strategic planning internally with CET, this data is going to be huge to informing how we make our strategic priorities as an organization too. So it's being weaved in all of our projects.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
So if we had commercial space available to rent, would you like to know about that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like, especially because the SBDCS providing free 101 confidential business advising. We have so many clients we finally get them to make a business plan and get them ready to get into a space. And then we're like, okay, like where to refer them. And there's a big lack, especially in certain cities, to point them to. And so when there is available commercial space, like that would be very helpful for us to refer our clients to.
Okay, and that's you versus Jason. I think I reached out to Jason originally, but is it you?
Yeah, Jason would be great. And then like I can also keep a pulse on it with the Keep It Local side too that I do. Like I talk to business owners all the time. So
Okay,
yeah.
fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Kira, thank you so much for coming and giving this presentation. It was very valuable.
Thank you. It's been a great time. And I just really want to thank NJ and also Lori for just joining us and helping us do all the interviews. So thank you.
So without 10 days notice, NJ has suggested that we move our discussion and vote for Economic Development Committee goals to the next session without the 10 days notice. Do I need
With 35 days notice.
It's on our agenda now.
Right.
We would have to make a change today.
Team agreement hasn't been signed yet, so.
Voted
I'll make a
Well,
motion to move it to the next meeting.
That's generous of you, Brian Rosenthal. Thank you so
No problem.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have any generous spirit in their heart today?
I don't have a problem with moving it. You're gonna get some kind of.
Good, thank you. Noted.
You mean on the goals you sent to them?
No, on goals that they may want us.
They're doing theirs on the 25th, so I would assume we get ours after that.
Yeah.
No, you're eager.
Well, frankly, I don't wanna have it.
Well, we're not, so that's perfect.
No, actually.
I second
two
it.
more.
Thank you.
2 months.
Is there a vote? Yes.
Okay,
It's gonna be too much.
So yeah, the council retreat is on January 25th.
January.
Yeah, and then February 20th is our next meeting.
should take good notes. Are you good with moving it to February? Okay, Carl said that it was fine.
If Carl
But
says
we
it
are
must
gonna
be.
get feedback before the meeting.
Yeah.
in 10 days.
10 days. Y'all are too much.
Sean, are you okay with moving the last agenda item to the next
Yes.
session?
Yep.
Everyone, Judy, Paul, everyone's fine. You're lucky that
Yes.
we were so generous. Okay, so that said, our next meetings will be February 20th, March 20th, and April 17th. Is that it? I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming. It was so great. I don't know why we couldn't talk about that. We had 13 minutes, but that's fine.
Talking about the parking.
Oh, and thank you everyone for watching that video for nothing this month. I appreciate that.
I mean, we could have had a